Hello, welcome to the lecture series on automobile engineering. In this session, let us discuss about the ignition system that we use in spark ignition engines. So, ignition of air-fuel mixture. Now, let us consider the engine cylinder. The piston is at the moving towards the top dead center. Here we have air-fuel mixture. So now we pass a spark. Let us say the stoichiometric air-fuel ratio, it is around 14.7:1. It can be linear or it can be richer. We pass a spark, then we ignite this picture. Then a small flame front will appear, and as the flame front travels like this, it consumes the charge. We also call it as charge. So, to send a spark here, we require an ignition system. Ignition system. Here you find a spark plug. External to that, you will have an ignition system. Once this ignition system sends a required voltage, a spark occurs between electrodes, and it is necessary that the spark should last long enough so that the energy can get transferred to this air-fuel mixture, so that this air-fuel mixture, after receiving that energy, should attain an ignition temperature, and then a flame front should appear. Okay, normally the energy that is transferred is around 10 millijoules. Of course, as I said, the required high voltage will be coming from the ignition system, and it will ignite the charge and consumes the charge. So let us study now how this ignition system works. So basically, in an ignition system, you need a source of energy. That source of energy can be a battery or it can be a magneto. Then the ignition system must develop a high voltage of the order of 40,000 to 100,000 volts. Normally you have a 12-volt battery. From 12 volt, we should boost up this voltage to this value, so that should be able to supply that amount of energy in fraction of a second. And that energy we can give by the formula like this. E is the energy, V is the voltage, I is the current, T the time for which the spark lasts. Okay. And another thing is we use a multi-cylinder engine. So every multi-cylinder engine will have, a firing order. So as per the firing order, a distributor arm should send the spark to various, or transfer the voltage to various spark plugs as per the firing order. Now this is what we call it as a battery ignition system, the conventional one, because nowadays a lot of technological developments have happened, and in this traditional system many changes have occurred. Anyway, let us understand first the conventional battery ignition system. The source of energy in this case is the battery. Okay, then you have the ignition switch. Then you have a ballast. It simply is called is a resistor. Then this is known as ignition coil. There is a condenser, and there is a make and break arrangement. Okay. Then we have the distributor. Then we have spark plugs. Okay, and this is the point at which the spark occurs. Okay. So now let us see the blue color line you trace. Battery, ignition switch, ballast, the primary windings in the ignition coil, then the condenser, the make and break arrangement. This you can call it as primary circuit. We call it as primary circuit. So make and break, you can also call it as contact breaker. The red colored one, you can see this coil, high voltage, it will go to distributor. This I call it as the secondary circuit. Of course, from there it gets distributed to various spark plugs. So now let us see how exactly it works. The whole idea is that, as I mentioned, we need 40,000 to 100,000 volts. That is the kind of voltage that should jump across this point here. You have a 12 volt battery. From 12 volt to 100,000 volts. How to get? So let us understand, suppose you have a magnet and there is a magnetic field. Like this. Suppose I have a coil of electric wire, say copper wire. Suppose I rotate this coil, then this will cut this magnetic field, so that into this a voltage gets induced. So it should cut perpendicular to this. So higher the rate of cutting, speed with which it cuts, higher will be the voltage induced. So this is a kind of situation. Suppose in case you have a coil and you have a magnetic field like this. You cannot rotate suppose assume that you cannot rotate the coil at all. Then I should rotate the magnetic field itself. So what is that we can do? You can build up the magnetic field and collapse the magnetic field. Build up, collapse, build up and collapse. Then this magnetic flux lines will start cutting this. This is another way of doing it. So that is the idea that we use here. Now, once the ignition switch is closed, we say the primary circuit is closed. Look here, primary circuit is closed this way. So this will become single unit like this. So the current will start passing through this. This is a ballast resistor. If all of a sudden a high value of current is flowing, just to resist that, so we use a resistor, right, to reduce that. This current passes through this primary coil. Okay, you know that when the current passes through a coil like this, primary coil, you know a magnetic field will be produced around this. Okay, the primary current when passes through this magnetic field will be produced. This magnetic field Okay, let us talk later. Magnetic field will be produced. And also in the meantime, when this passes through this, you can also see that the condenser gets charged. Condenser gets charged. It will charge the condenser also. You please know that these 2 points are in contact, so that circuit will be in the closed position. These contact breaker points are here, they will be in the closed position like this. Now the question is, when this, as I told you here, it produces a magnetic field, this magnetic field will be cut by this secondary coil. One thing is, number of turns on the secondary coil will be many more times than the primary coil. That's one thing. So to facilitate high voltage induction into it. So when this coil, you have another coil here into this coil, this voltage, this magnetic flux will be cut by this coil and a high voltage will be induced. If the number of turns of the secondary coil is more, then the voltage induced will also be more. As I told you here, we need something, a rotating magnetic field. Rotating magnetic field. So what is happening over here, when the circuit is closed, current passes, it will induce the magnetic field will be produced, that will be cut by this coil, voltage will be induced. But that is not sufficient. So what we have to do is, we have built up the magnetic field, now collapse the magnetic field. For collapsing the magnetic field, you see here, there is a cam. There is a cam. If this cam is rotating, this will push this breaker away from that, so that then the primary circuit gets opened up. Opened up means then what is going to happen? So no more current will flow. And also we make the capacitor discharge, so the current can flow in the reverse direction and collapse the magnetic field. Again, it is rotating. Again, when it can't make a contact, again it builds up. Again it collapses, builds up, collapse, builds up. Because of this rate of cutting will increase and the voltage will be induced in this. High voltage will be induced. That's how I said 40,000 to 100,000 voltage gets induced. It will come here. This is what we call it as the distributor. This is the rotor of the distributor. Suppose the distributor rotor makes a contact with this, then that voltage should flow to that electrode, that spark plug. So this is the positive electrode, then there is a negative electrode. When this high voltage tries to jump across this, a spark will be produced. Okay. Next, suppose it is rotating this, it makes a contact here, then this gets fired. Then this gets fired. Then this gets fired like this. So it may fire first 2, maybe 1, maybe 3, and 4 in that order it might fire. Okay. So it is not first days, second days, third, fourth, not like this. This may be first, this is second, right? First. Okay. So second, first 2, 1, 3, 4. That way it might get fired. This is what we call it as the firing order. Firing order. Okay, so then the respective cylinder, whatever charge is there, gets ignited and generates the required power. So this is how a battery ignition system works. Battery ignition system works. Observe here, there are certain issues here. What are those issues? Here I have a mechanical cam. This is the one which will make contact, break contact like this. Sometimes what happens, arcing occurs across this. Because of that arcing, erosion occurs. So after some time, the system may not work properly at all. There's a kind of difficulty we might face in this system. Okay, this is how the conventional battery ignition system works. Of course, this battery, we charge this battery. In the vehicle, we'll have a dynamo. This dynamo is coupled to the engine through a belt or whatever it is. That will produce the DC voltage, and that we connect it to the battery. So the battery continuously gets charged, and it will be sending the charge voltage here, just like that. So there are many videos available on the YouTube. Look at those videos and you can understand how the ignition system works. So these are the components once again I have shown. Now the question is, you see here the distributor. Here I have shown 6-cylinder one. There are 6 spark plugs. The inside portion, you have seen it will be like this. This is for the 4-cylinder, so I think there is a mismatch. For the 6-cylinder distributor will be there. That's what you can find here. But this arm, how exactly it rotates. So this is what it will be connected to again. Okay, some rotary system that is driven by the engine. As this rotates, this will also rotate, and so that the rotor rotates. So that's why it's a rotor system, we call this. Okay, this is the battery, this is the rotor, and now, right, ignition coil, all this system, you can see this. So how exactly a coil looks like? As I told you, there will be primary windings and secondary windings, and second one is the condenser part of it, and other one is the contact breaker part of it. Okay, so this, whatever I have already explained, the same thing has been shown over here. Okay. So this has been explained earlier. Once again, I have repeatedly shown some of these things. Here, I have just explained how exactly the magnetic field builds up and collapses. When the switch is in the closed position, magnetic field builds up. When the switch is open, the magnetic field collapses. That's how a very high voltage gets induced in the secondary coil. So to open this switch only, we use this breaker points. Open and close this. That is the idea behind this. So also I explained about the distributor arm, how it distributes the spark. This is the contact breaker point. That's what exactly it does. In a 6-cylinder, you will have 6 lobes. 4-cylinder, you will have 4 lobes like this. You can see here, when this makes a contact with this, it pushes this away. Again, when it comes to horizontal, they make a contact. Again, as it goes up, slowly it will rise up, and again it will break. That's how it happens. There is something like ignition timing. When exactly we need to pass the spark. You can see pressure inside. You can say pressure inside the cylinder in bars versus crank angle diagram. So this is the top dead center point. So the cylinder, let us say the piston is executing compression process. It is moving from bottom dead center towards the top dead center. Approximately around 20 degrees before the top dead center, spark is passed. So now around 12-degree period, here you can see this, we call it as ignition lag. What really happens ignition lag means the mixture what you have inside the cylinder, okay, it receives the energy, but here these molecules have to gain that energy and attain ignition temperature. Okay, they should be ready to react. Oxygen and fuel molecules should be able to react. So we can say it's a preparation stage. That is what we call it as immediately it will not happen. The molecules have to get the energy, attain some ignition temperature. So this is a chemical process actually. So this ignition lag is what will happen. And at this point, a small flame front will appear. Suppose you are sparking here, a flame front, small flame, a bubble will appear. Okay, as this bubble appears, then what happens is this bubble will grow. We call it as a flame front, and it will grow like this, and also it will travel in the forward direction, right, consuming the charge. Okay, here this temperature will be very, very high. Maybe it is something like, 2000 degrees Celsius plus, like kind of a temperature. More than that. Okay, we calculate adiabatic flame temperature and all that. Let us say it's more than that temperature. As this charge consumes, pressure increases. So that the maximum pressure normally occurs around 10 to 11 degrees after the top dead center. Because in the cylinder, the piston will be something going downwards, that is from top dead center to bottom dead center. That time when high pressure is applied, you can see that the crank position will be something like at an angle, so that it smoothly turns. There will not be any shock as such. Correct? So that's how. Then you see this is what we call it as after burning stage. Still some amount, around 68 to 70% of energy gets released here. Remaining energy gets released in this region. Okay, that's how normally we do for a stoichiometric air-fuel ratio. Now the thing is, let us say at a particular engine speed, let us say, if the engine speed increases, then to cover this distance, the time reduces. However, this ignition lag, this ignition lag time is not dependent on speed. It's a fuel characteristic, property. So that means, suppose ignition lag, let us consider it is 0.01. I'm just simply saying this, millisecond or whatever it is. Assume that. So now if I increase the speed, I have to maintain that 0.01 millisecond means I should stretch this. That means instead of passing the spark here, I might have to pass the spark here to get the same time. So I have advanced the spark. This is what we call it as spark advancing. Spark advancing. Because I have to maintain the same time. You see here, to get maximum pressure at the right crank angle position, if I by chance, if I pass the spark over here, probably the maximum pressure occurs here. then your curve will be something like this. So then what is going to happen? I will not be able to recover maximum amount of energy, and moreover the gases which go out, lot of unburned gases will go out through the exhaust gases. So that is why to have the complete combustion and to get the complete energy release, or you can say to have a right thermal efficiency, it is necessary to do that. So to get the maximum pressure at the right crank angle position, sparking at right time is essential. Therefore, ignition, engine speed, you have to careful. Again, if it's a rich mixture, if the load is very high, the temperature is high, probably you can retard the spark. Depending on the fuel type, you have to find out where exactly we should have the spark, because we have to understand the ignition delay of that fuel strength. Mixture strength, whether we are talking about a lean mixture or we are talking about a rich mixture. Rich mixture means flame will travel very fast. That is the thing. Lean mixture means it will travel very slow. So these are the same thing. We have to look into those and get for a given type what strength, what exactly the ignition lag and other thing. Accordingly, we have to either retard the spark or at the spark at the right position or advance the spark. So that is what it means. Sparking has to be regulated depending on requirements. Either spark needs to be advanced or retarded. So when I was explaining, I think, engine combustion, I have explained all these factors, how exactly these factors affect the, combustion, right? So how exactly, particularly I am talking about the factors which affect the ignition, factors which affect the flame propagation, all these have been explained there. And also I have given a table, what needs to be done. Okay, so this is what I have written down over here, which you can go through this. So that's why there is something like in conventional system, we have a spark advancing mechanism. What exactly we mean by spark advancing mechanism? So the whole thing is we need to set this orientation of this. This part I'll connect it to a spark advancing mechanism, and that mechanism will change the orientation of this. So you can see here. So suppose high speed, what is going to happen? It will rotate this one. Okay, initial positions. So it will move away, it will throw like this, and it will change this orientation. Okay, so they call it as advancing weight and all that. Advancing, see here, this is the cam which I'm going to change the position. Okay, I'll just change its orientation. That's the thing. So the points also control the timing of the spark. They may have a vacuum. I can use either vacuum or I can use centrifugal mechanism, and I can do this. These mechanisms advance the timing in proportion to engine load and engine speed. You can see higher the speed, then the centrifugal, this thing will be very, very useful. At low speeds, probably the vacuum advancing will be useful. That is it. So spark timing is so critical to an engine that most cars don't use points. Instead, they use a sensor that tells the engine control unit the exact position of the piston. The engine computer then controls. This is what in an advanced system and all. This is what we have in a traditional system. So you play this video, you can clearly explain how exactly the spark advancing happens.
The spark is normally set at minor speeds by positioning the distributor of the body in relation to its rotating cam. The timing is set on number 1 cylinder, and the contacts are operated in turn by each cam to evoke the same timing point.
So you play this video and you will understand whatever I explained this. Right. Then after that, there's one of the most important thing is like spark plug. You see here is connector, that high voltage from the distributor, the wire is connected to this. Through this, it will flow. This is what the electrode is. And to the body, we have the negative electrode. Here we have to maintain a proper gap. Correct? Again, this depends on many factors. Gap should not be too close, not too wide, then sparking may not happen properly. So proper electrode gap is also necessary. Across this gap, the spark jumps, then ignition occurs. Okay, right, sir. Then sometimes you will have hot and cold plugs. Suppose you want to keep this, depending on the environment, it is necessary to keep the spark plug very hot. Then you can see there is a larger insulation region, very small heat loss region, so that this will be, so heat is not lost, so it will remain hot. If you provide a lot of heat transfer surface like this, if the insulator is removed and all that, then this becomes cold plug like this. Some cars require a hot plug. This type of plug is designed with a ceramic insert that has a smaller contact area with the metal part of the plug. This reduces the heat transfer from the ceramic, making it run hotter, thus burn away more deposits. Cold plugs are designed with more contact area, so they run cooler. Okay, this is what we mean by more contact area. Here it is less contact area. Right. Okay. The car maker will select the right temperature plug for each car. Some cars with high performance engines naturally generate more heat, so they need colder plugs. If the spark plug gets too hot, it could ignite the fuel before the spark fires. So it is important to stick with the right type of plug. Okay. At the time of designing and where to which place, what is that we design, all these things we take care of those, and what type of vehicle it is. Right. Another very important thing is, instead of battery as a source, can I use magneto as a source? In this case, a magneto is used as a source of energy. You can see here it is a permanent magnet. So permanent magnet, when it is rotated, as I told you, flux lines will be cut by the primary coil. See here, you have the magneto. So then it will be cut by the magnetic, primary coil. This in turn will induce high voltage into the secondary coil. Here also you have the ignition switch. Also, please remember that again you have a condenser. Also, you have a contact breaker point which works in a similar way to induce very high voltage. So the high voltage again is taken out from here, given to the distributor. From the distributor flow to the spark plug. So here I think, you do not have a battery. For a smaller vehicle it is good. You have to crank the engine. When you start cranking, then this will rotate, then only it will induce the required voltage and it will create the spark. So now the question is firing order. What order we should fire? Let me write. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now, let us say it makes a contact with this. Okay. Or it makes a contact with this. To whichever direction, assuming a rotor is rotating in this direction. Let us say it has fired 4. Then this fellow, sorry, here it will come here. It will fire 2. Then it will come here. It will fire 1. Then it will fire here. So that means it will fire cylinder 4 first. Then cylinder 2 it will fire. Then it will fire the cylinder 1. So 4, 2, 1. Then 3 it will fire. Finally, in that order it will fire. This is what you call it as firing order. Firing order. I think I have explained the need for firing order and all that. So suppose you have 4 cylinders like this, right? Suppose I fire this, next I fire this, next I fire this. Okay, the gases have just expanded. This body has become very hot. Immediately I fire this body has become hot. We are not even cooled. Immediately we have fired. So then what happens? This becomes too hot region. Then this becomes cold region. There is uneven expansion. That is one thing. Second thing is even the lubricant, because of the high temperature, even lubricant may get burnt off. So it is better you fire this. Then you fire maybe here, so that by the time you come back to this it would have cooled. Then you can fire this. Then by the time you come back it would have cooled. So it is better we choose that way, so that the heat transfer point of view it will be much better. Okay, that is one part. Second thing is, you see the shaft, that is crankshaft. I have given the thrust here. Next I have given the thrust here. I have not given over here. So there is more load on one side, less load on the other side. Correct? Uneven. So it may lead to vibrations also. Instead of that, let us put the load. Then you put the load over here. Then it is about to come. Then you fire this. That way, even way you can distribute. So that way, from load distribution point of view, also it is better. That is why normally they choose a particular firing order from the heat transfer point of view, also from loading the crankshaft, and to avoid the rough running and uneven, loading uneven stress, all these kind of things. To avoid all this problem, they choose this proper firing order. So this firing order is decided based on engine vibration, engine cooling, and development of back pressure. What it means is development of back pressure. Suppose from this cylinder all the gases are going to the exhaust. Correct? Like this. Right. So now the question is this gas, then immediately this gas blocks this. So it will create some kind of a back pressure on the piston, so that the complete expansion does not happen. That is another kind of thing. So that will reduce the efficiency. So this is another difficulty that you will come across. So that's why, as I said, it can be 1, 2, 4, 3 or 1, 3, 4, 2. You can choose this first. So 3 cylinder, 8 cylinder, 6 cylinder, there will be a proper order the manufacturer will specify based on this design, calculations and simulations. Okay, as I mentioned, the biggest problem with the conventional ignition system is in this region. It will erode. Arcing, burning, and wear tear of contact breaker points cause timing errors. At high speeds, the contact breaker tends to bounce, resulting either in weak spark or misfiring. At low speeds, the contact breaker closes for a longer time, drawing relatively high current. So this is our difficulty. So we should eliminate this. That is the advancement. That's why you can have transistor assisted contact system, high voltage capacitive discharge ignition system. Nowadays, they what you call it as electronic ignition system using contactless triggers. These are the developments that have taken place. So primary, ballast, condenser, use here. But still there is cam over here. And you have the transistor. Only thing is using this, the arcing possibility you are reducing. That's all the thing. Otherwise, you are not eliminated this. Okay, the current flow across the contact is greatly reduced using a ballast transistor arrangement. It continues to pose the mechanical problems involved wear and tear, slow response time. That problem. So it is not the great solution. High voltage capacitive discharge ignition system, SCR fired. So here you see here you have magnet, fine, your transformer. So now the thing is, as it rotates, now the voltage will pass through like this, charges the capacitor, also the primary circuit. So it keeps on charging the capacitor as well as this induces the voltage in the primary circuit here in the first one. Please look here, there is a pulse rotor. This is also rotating. When it has to be fired, when the pulse rotor, this, right, there's a trigger over here. So when these two come align in a line, then this gets triggered. You can say it triggers this. SCR triggers this. Then high voltage will be induced into this and a spark occurs. So using this pulse rotor by passing and we can trigger using SCR, you can trigger this and high voltage can be transferred to the secondary, like in a ignition coil. So that's how we can. Now the question is, you have totally avoided that contact breaker. Instead of that, we are using a pulse rotor. Otherwise, please note that all other function remains the same. So now we can extend this idea to a multi-cylinder arrangement. So the capacitor charged to a high voltage by means of a transformer at the moment of ignition discharges by a thyristor through the primary circuit, which generates a high voltage pulse in the secondary circuit to fire the spark plug. This capacitor, first we charge to a very high value, then make it discharge. Then when we discharge, see that this gets induced into a very high voltage. The difficulty is the fast discharging of the capacitor. The spark is strong and short. This can lead to ignition difficulties under rich mixture operations because it will not last for longer time. Okay, there are videos available to understand this. Next, you have this electronic ignition system using contactless triggers. In this again, we have brought in now an ECU. As explained earlier, your battery. Okay, then there is primary circuit, fine. Correct? There is ignition coil and all that. But when exactly the high voltage has to go into this? So here you can see, as earlier said, you have is a pickup and there is reluctance or armature. Suppose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cylinder, like say. So when this gets aligned, as I explained earlier, it will say that a high voltage is induced and that will go to that particular spark plug. From the distributor, it will go to the distributor. From distributor, it will go to the particular spark plug and it fires. Of course, you have your vacuum advancing mechanism and all that. Whole idea here is you can clearly see that completely contactless triggers. So once this goes, now the ECU will decide the capacitor discharge and induction of voltage into the secondary coil and then passing on to the distributor, and distributor, as it rotor rotates, it will be transferring that voltage to a particular this spark plug. So that way you have completely avoided that. So contact points of a conventional ignition system has been replaced by a magnetic pickup, as I said. Cam has been replaced by this one, rotor impulse reluctor. Number of metal tips are equal to the number of cylinders. Suppose there are 8 here, then it is 8 cylinder thing. Correct. So the magnetic field is passed on to the pickup every time the reluctor tip passes the pickup coil in which an electric pulse is generated. The electric pulse triggers the electronic control module which stops the flow of battery current to the ignition coil, and because the rapid collapse of the magnetic field, high voltage is induced in the secondary windings. That's how the electronic ignition system works. Okay. So once it picks up, then whether the discharge, right now, the flow of battery current to the ignition coil, it stops, and the rapid collapse of the magnetic field. The same thing what I explained in the conventional system, magnetic collapse once the primary circuit is cut, then there is a collapse of this magnetic. Of course, there will be condenser and all those things to make the current flow in the reverse direction. High voltage will be induced in the secondary windings, and then that will flow to the distributor, from there to the spark plug. So now this becomes more reliable. More reliable. So spark ignition gasoline engine, that's why we are using a spark plug. You know, in diesel engine it is also known as compression ignition engine. Nowadays HCCI, right? Homogeneous combustion compression ignition, that is also there. Again, here you are not using any spark plug. So combustion starts whenever heat and pressure are high enough. In this case, this is because of the compression, the temperature will be high enough to ignite the mixture, but here you are using the spark plug. That's how ignition happens. Hope all these points have been made clear to you. So thus we will complete unit number 3. In the next session, let's start with the unit 4. Till then, thank you